At you with a World of Warcraft video, and this is going to be like the first video I do on WoW, and it's basically going to be a series where I take the current raid tier, so in this case Battle for Dazzler, and I go through the fights one by one. I make a video for each fight, sometimes two videos if we're doing a heroic and mythic version. And the idea is that I'll be trying to show you how to DPS them optimally from a hunter's perspective, and just my thoughts on how to play the fight as a hunter. So a lot of it's going to be focused on DPS, like doing the max damage, but it's also going to be focused on, like how, if there's tricky points in the fight, what you're going to be able to do to survive. Like, Hunter has a lot of defensive utility, so it's very, you really shouldn't be dying in any of these fights, to be honest. So I'll tell you, I'll give you like kind of like the scoop where to use your abilities if things get tricky and stuff like that. How I use things like Turtle, or things like Exil and stuff like that are usually pretty reactive, but things like Turtle and your aspect ability that comes with your defensive pet or whatever, that's a bit more planned out. So things like that. And one note before I get into this, there's going to be a little padding in this video, and because these are going to be damage guides and kind of get to show you how to log well and stuff like that, some of them are going to have elements of padding in them. Now, I never pad to the extent where it's going to be harmful to my raid. This particular fight is a very easy fight, and doing a little bit of padding on the ads at the beginning is not really going to hurt anyone or do anything wrong. If I ever do really need the damage on the boss, for example, we will, like always, put hard damage into the boss, or vice versa on the ads. But if you don't like padding at all or anything, I will make the points clear where there's padding occurring and what to do to not pad. So you can still gain a lot from the video even if you're not looking to pad. But yeah, no super padding here. We're not going to extreme measures, but if there's a little bit how we can eke out some extra damage even if it's not super relevant to the fight, I'll do it if it's not going to be a detriment on progression. So with that out of the way, this is Champions of the Light. We're going to start the video from the countdown of 7, and I'm just going to kind of pause throughout wherever I feel necessary to explain some things, but going to be trying to explain it as the fight goes on. So I'll just watch this. I'm going to do it with sound at first, and then if I don't end up liking that in the future, we'll change it. Okay, so just in terms of the opener and stuff like that, so the opener is pretty standard. It's pre-pot, around, close to 2 seconds before, maybe a little bit before. Then the idea why we're trying to pre-pot so early is because, unfortunately, Blizzard hates fun. So they've made it so that the cooldowns that you have don't come up, and trigger the GCD, sorry. So before, you'd actually have a macro that would immediately cast Bestial Wrath with kill command, right? So it'd be amazing, you wouldn't have to do any of this bullshit, but now you kind of have to pre-pop Bestial Wrath, because if you don't pre-pop Bestial Wrath, it's not going to be, the fight's going to have started, and you're going to be in your global for that to, come off global, and then you're going to have to kill command, stuff like that. So you try and get a little bit ahead of the game. It's not really super important or anything, but, just kind of showing the optimizational aspect there. So pop Bestial Wrath, and then I believe I immediately go with, I'm going to just take one more look back here. I believe I immediately go with a multi-shot. Yeah, so I multi-shot right on the pole, and I do it with the Anointed Disciple targeted. And the reason why I target the one that you can see there is because it's kind of in the middle of the boss and in the other two. So this is something that's going to be important when playing BM, is you need to be cognizant of what target you're attacking, because that's kind of where your pet's going to be attacking, assuming you have pet attack macros and things like that, which means that that's where the Beast Cleave is going to be radiating out from. So if I were to have targeted this guy right here, the Crusader, then the boss might not be getting hit by the Beast Cleave, right? So it is important to try to be cognizant of where your pet is, and that's why I like having pet attack bound into pretty much like a lot of the abilities, especially like multi-shot and stuff like that, because even when you're trying to reapply Beast Cleave, or if you have Focus Fire when you're kind of like spamming the multi-shot to get your aspect back, you can still pick the individual target that you want your pet to be going on. So even though you're hitting all the targets, you can actually change what target your pet is going to, which can be pretty important. Especially, it's really more important, I would say, in Mythic Plus than in a raid in most cases. But like this is a situation where it could be somewhat important. The range on Beast Cleave is pretty large, but you always want to be trying to hit everything you can. And so normally you wouldn't multi-shot first, right? But the idea is we want our Beast Cleave rolling as soon as possible, because there's multiple targets out in the field, so we immediately want to start getting things out there, And then so we pop our Bestial Wrath, we get our multi-shot out, and then we're immediately going to barb shot because we want to start getting the pet haste on the pet. You want to be thinking of barb shot as like it does AoE damage, sure, but it's also the key to your pet's DPS in a sense, because your pet is basically auto-attacking a lot and then using its bite or claw or whatever ability, which I believe is also reduced by the GCD a bit. I'm not entirely sure, but irregardless, you're doing a lot of auto-attack damage, so regardless, I should say, sorry. But you're doing a lot of pet auto-attack damage, so you want your pet attack speed to be very high, which is what Barb Shot allows you to do. So you want to get that up there as high as possible. So we're going to hit the Barb Shot stack next, and then we're going to Aspect to get our Barb Shot back, because we have a Primal Instincts, which is really important that you run. You want to run at least one for sure. Typically, you want to be stacking them as much as you can on BM. And then we're going to hit the next one, and not only is that going to do AoE damage again, but it's going to allow for us to have 2 stacks like very quickly, so our pet is already attacking really fast, which affects the Beast Cleave attack speed. So yeah, it's pretty important. So we're gonna, as you can see, we get there. And then we're going to hit another multi-shot. Little bit of a mistake there, because something you want to be cognizant of if you want like the perfect opener, right, is that you could see I used my Chimera Shot and my focus capped out. Now it kind of looks like I pressed the Chimera Shot and I got that much focus back, but actually I was gaining an ass load of focus from Aspect and everything like that, because Aspect gives a bit of focus. You have generally more haste on the pull, especially if you're going to be heroisming or lusting. They didn't heroism here, but they will in like a couple seconds, I believe. But yeah, so what you want to be doing is you obviously want to be using Chimera Shot because it hits hard, but if you can, you want to be putting yourself in enough of a focus deficit so that when you hit it, you don't actually cap out necessarily, right? Because you don't want to be wasting the extra focus. Here, it could have been the right decision. It's hard to really tell like how much focus I was gaining and stuff. And the other thing you have to keep in mind is that on single target, what I just said is a lot more of a rule, right? Because on single target, your Chimera Shot is still only hitting the one target, so it's nowhere near as like big of a priority as is using other abilities. But the problem is on multi-target, the Chimera Shot cleaves. So getting it out, you do want to, in some sense, get it on cooldown very quickly, right? So there's a bit of a trade-off where you almost don't care as much if you're wasting a little bit of the focus if you're putting it on CD right away. Now in this particular case, though, I'm not going to be like training on the ads. So it's not really like putting it on cooldown right away gives me a huge advantage. Probably not even going to get a second one on the ads. We'll see here, but I'll keep going forward.
On pull here.
Yeah. Okay, so I did a little bit of damage, had my pet over here for a sec, got it back to the ad. Then fortunately they bring an ad over here, which kind of helps.
Oh no.
Dodge the hammer's kind of close.
Yeah, so having them bring the ads to the boss is good, but you're not really supposed to do that, I don't think, on this boss, so it's kind of more of a mistake, if anything. And you just have to always be watching on this boss the ad that does the reflection, basically, where he's gonna fear your character. I'll lower this as much as possible. But yeah, so there's gonna be an ad that fears you, basically, right? And you want to be looking away from him, which is what the weak aura over here was when you see myself turn my character. Um, and that's pretty easy to do, especially on Hunter. The way I was facing, I was basically still hitting the boss. I wasn't even looking. I don't even think I needed to make the adjustment turn I did, but I always just do it a little bit to be safe, because even if you're kind of if you make it so that you're not like you're kind of like not out of line of sight of the boss, but if you're not able to hit the boss through the direction you're facing for a second, it's like well worth it as opposed to being feared for 4 seconds. And the only thing that's really gonna come of that is you're gonna miss maybe like an auto shot or something because your kill command is still able to hit the boss and everything like that. So they've called now for the swap onto the ads. As you can see, I have the weak art here, ignore the boss. So we bring the pet over and we keep beast cleave up. It's very important to always keep beast cleave up. This is the turn thing right here, so there you go. It's very important to always keep beast cleave up right off the bat, basically, and even if it's 2 targets, because especially if you have any buffs on you or anything like that, it's super important. It does a lot of damage. This wave is something you want to dodge. The boss does the wave towards the ads. So typically what you want to do is just be in a place like here where you're not next to the ads and you don't even have to move usually. Sometimes, depending on what happens, the things get moved and stuff like that, and the thing will come to you. So just be cognizant of that. So this is more boss damage phase. You can see, I think this is where they begin start casting the heal. If somebody interrupted a heal over there, I'm just moving from that. This is the guy that's casting the Blinding Faith, so you have to turn around. And did a little bit of a mistake here. As you can see, my Bestial Wrath came off cooldown a little bit before my Primal. Now, because Primal is longer than Bestial Wrath, you only have 15 seconds of Bestial Wrath, you really want to try and line them up as much as possible when they're close like that. And I kind of got a little bit trigger happy, seen that it was up, and popped it. So as you can see, I've got 11 seconds left of this, and there's only 5. We have 5 seconds before we actually get our next cooldown. So that means that by the time this is up, we're only going to have 6 seconds of overlap, which is very non-ideal. So you should always be waiting to pop them at the same time when it's that close. So we pop our pot here because, and this is something too, is you're going to, and I'm going to be talking about this in the video series as it continues, is that a lot of doing optimal DPS on these fights is kind of judging when you're going to use your cooldowns, right? And in some cases, what may have triggered my decision making there is I may have thought like, okay, I'm not going to get another Primal Instinct, right? But I'm going to get a couple more Bestial Wraths. So that means that I actually don't have to try and time it here, and I can eke out a couple more Wraths. Like in other words, like since this is not off cooldown yet, like was it 15 seconds ago when I popped this, that means that I'd be wasting 15 seconds on this, right? Because I'm going to get another one of these that's going to line up with this inevitably, and that's when I'll use my pot. So that could have been the thought process there, but the problem is, you can see this is a very easy boss, and the boss HP is already at 25%. So sometimes you're going to have to make a judgment call, and a lot of times you'll have a feel for how the fight is going to go, if you stay in the same guild, you've done the fight a bunch of times. But there can be compounding factors, especially like the first couple weeks of raiding, where people are getting a lot of gear, and it's kind of changing like how fast you push the boss in some cases, or things like that. Talik was kind of a fight like that, where the cooldowns get a little fucky when you got into the part where he goes down and stuff like that, because that changes heavily depending on how much gear you have, how much damage you can do to him initially. So it's just something you want to keep in mind. You always kind of want to be cognizant of the boss HP. You know what I mean? So I basically realized that at this point I'm going to have to hard commit to doing my burst here. And unfortunately, this should really be like 14 seconds here, 18 seconds here, 17 seconds here. But, it's not, so.
All of them.
All of them, dude.
And then I'm going to have my crows up with, luckily a dice proc, and that's what this is. And then a potion and wrath, but
just go boss. Just go boss.
I didn't look away.
Oh crap.
the ads are also going to be doing like they're going to be casting a heal, which you can probably see. Like pretty much anybody can interrupt it. I think there's only like 3 or 2 healing ads, so sometimes you're going to get interrupted, sometimes you're not. It's not really important. The only thing that matters is that they get interrupted. So just trying to get our last couple. I think I got the kill command off at the end, but not entirely sure.
More weapons.
So
Damn you beakers.
very easy fight, but the main way I would say you want to optimize this fight is you just don't get hit by any of the disorientates or the fears or whatever, which is the blinding light shit like that, because that'll really tank your damage. Because the problem is this is a very easy fight, so that means there's even people who are worse are going to be able to perform their rotation relatively easily on the fight, which means that what's going to separate you really is like the little things here, you know what I mean? In RNG, of course, there's always an RNG element in a lot of the stuff like that. But this was a World 6th for BM on the fight at the time of the kill. I think it stood that way for a bit. Might have went to 7th or something like that. It probably is down there now. Or it'll be down there like when the new week starts. But yeah, so I think it was like 24 or something. 24 point something K at the time. But yeah, so it's really that, and then getting some good cleave damage from the start is good, like sending your pet into the ad bundle. And we kind of got a little fortunate because when it came, I peeled back onto the boss really quick, because obviously the idea is you pop hero at the start and you try and pump damage into the boss. So I don't want to be like a complete damage whore and just, you know, tunneling the ads the entire time. But there was one ad that like straight onto the boss, which kind of helped beast cleave damage a bit. On a fight like this, to really get like the rank 1 parse, you're probably gonna have to be like patting your ass off generally, or it could be possible if the guild just had a really high eye level, really good players like Method or something, and they just tunneled the boss down, super quick, and your damage stood up really high. But there's likely going to be some element of padding that comes into a boss like this. So
okay, super nice work tonight. So
yeah, that's pretty much the fight. And if you have any questions or anything, just leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching.